desperate mother pleaded, "Let me warm your bed. Just please give my child food." And then Maria walked slowly down the cold, narrow streets of the city, her little daughter Sophia clinging tightly to her hand. The winter wind cut through her thin coat, making her shiver. Snow fell lightly, melting on her cheeks, and she pulled her scarf tighter around her neck. Her small shoes were wet and worn, and her socks had holes in them. But she did not care. All that mattered was keeping Sophia close and safe. Her tiny daughter looked up at her with wide eyes, shivering, and Maria felt a pang in her chest. How could she explain to a child why there was no food, no warm bed, and nowhere to go? For weeks, Maria had been struggling to make ends meet. She had worked odd jobs, cleaning houses, washing dishes, and running errands, but the pay was never enough. She had no family nearby to help, and the small apartment she had rented was now unsafe. The landlord had ignored the leaking roof, the broken heater, and the mold that crept along the walls. One day, after yet another rainstorm had soaked the floor and ruined what little furniture they had, Maria had been forced to leave. She could not stay there any longer, not with Sophia. They were now sleeping in temporary shelters, crowded and noisy, or sometimes just on park benches when shelters were full. The city was harsh, but Maria had no choice. She had to keep moving forward. As they walked, Maria thought about the meals they had eaten over the past week, or rather, the meals they had not eaten. Breakfast had been a stale piece of bread she had found at a corner shop, and lunch had been nothing but a few scraps she had managed to collect from the shelter kitchen. Dinner was still a question mark, and she feared what would happen when Sophia's tiny stomach began to growl again. Her own hunger was sharp, gnawing at her belly, but she ignored it. She had to stay strong for her daughter. Every time Sophia complained or rubbed her tummy, Maria felt as if her heart was breaking into pieces. She wished she could give her everything: a warm bed, a proper meal, a soft blanket, but right now she could barely give her the basics. The streets were crowded, filled with people who were busy with their own lives. Some hurried past, faces buried in scarves or staring at their phones. Others glanced at her and Sophia briefly before looking away, afraid to get involved, too wrapped up in their own problems. Maria did not feel anger toward them. She understood that the world was hard and many people were struggling. Still, it hurt to feel invisible, as if she and her daughter were ghosts moving through the city, unnoticed and unimportant. Her eyes scanned the shops and buildings, looking for some small sign of hope, a food pantry, a charity sign, or even just someone who might help. But tonight, the city seemed cold, unwelcoming, and silent to their cries. Sophia tugged at her hand, pointing toward a warm-looking restaurant. Her eyes sparkled with innocent hope.
"Mama, can we go in?" she asked softly.
Maria shook her head. She could see the delicious smells wafting from inside, and she felt the ache of hunger even more strongly, but she knew they could not afford it. The world had given her nothing, and yet here was her daughter, still full of hope and trust. Maria knelt down to Sophia's level and whispered, "Not tonight, sweetheart. We'll find something else." Sophia nodded, trying to be brave, but Maria could see the disappointment in her small face. That sight pierced her heart like an icy blade. They continued walking, their footsteps crunching on the thin layer of snow. The streets were full of lights, windows glowing with warmth, and Maria could not help but compare their lives to the people inside. Families laughing over dinner, couples holding hands, children playing in their cozy rooms. It all seemed like another world, a world that was just out of reach. Maria's heart ached, but she did not let herself cry. Tears would not fill Sophia's stomach, and they had to keep moving. She thought about the night ahead, wondering where they would sleep. Shelters were full, and the city streets offered no comfort. She wished she could give her daughter even a single warm bed, a soft pillow, a blanket that smelled like safety. All she had were her arms and her determination. As they walked past a row of closed shops, Maria noticed an elderly woman sitting on the steps of a building. She was wrapped in several layers of clothes and had a small basket of items next to her. Her eyes were kind, and she smiled faintly as Maria passed. Something in her gaze gave Maria a small spark of hope. Could this woman help? She shook her head, knowing that asking for help was not easy. Pride and fear were strong, but hunger and desperation were stronger. She took a deep breath and whispered to herself, "I have to try. For Sophia." The memory of past nights haunted her, nights spent huddled in blankets that were too thin, trying to shield Sophia from the biting wind. Nights where she had cried silently, wishing someone would notice, wishing someone would care. She remembered how Sophia had once asked, "Mama, will we ever have a bed to sleep in?" And how Maria had had to answer with a shaky voice, "Yes, baby, soon." But the truth was, she did not know if that soon would ever come. She did not know if the city could ever feel safe again. And yet, she walked on, holding her daughter tightly, letting hope guide her trembling steps. The city seemed to stretch endlessly, a maze of streets and buildings, each one offering a mixture of possibility and despair. Maria scanned each corner, each alleyway, searching for any sign of kindness, any sign that someone might understand their plight. Her stomach growled again, and she rubbed it softly, trying to soothe the pain. Sophia clung to her even tighter, sensing her mother's anxiety. Maria whispered, "We will find food, Sophia."
I promise. Her words were soft, but they were full of conviction, the only thing she had to keep herself going.
She needed to believe in that promise, because without it, the night would swallow them whole. Hours passed as they moved slowly through the streets. The cold was relentless, seeping into their bones. Maria's hands were raw, her face red and numb from the wind, but she refused to stop. Every step she took was for Sophia, every breath a silent plea for help. She imagined a place where her daughter could laugh, eat, and sleep without fear. She imagined a small apartment, a warm meal waiting on the table, a soft bed with blankets tucked in neatly. The thought gave her strength, even as reality pressed in with the harshness of empty stomachs and icy pavements. Finally, after what felt like an endless night, Maria spotted a small building that looked different from the rest. There was a faint light in one of the windows, and she could hear soft voices inside. Her heart raced. Could this be a place that might help? She approached cautiously, holding Sophia close. The little girl's eyes widened, filled with both fear and curiosity. Maria whispered, "Stay close to me, baby."
We'll see if they can help. She took a deep breath, trying to steady herself.
Pride had to be set aside. Hunger had to be faced honestly. And so, with trembling hands and a voice full of both fear and hope, Maria knocked on the door, ready to ask for help in the only way she knew how. Maria's hand shook as she pressed the small bell outside the door. The soft chime echoed in the hallway, and for a moment she felt as if the sound carried all her hopes and fears. She held Sophia close, feeling her daughter's tiny body trembling against her chest. The little girl's hands clutched at Maria's coat as if her life depended on it, and in a way, it did. Maria's heart ached to see her child so small, so fragile, and yet so brave. Sophia looked up at her with wide, trusting eyes, and Maria felt the weight of every step she had taken, every choice she had made, and every desperate hope that had led them here. After a few long moments, the door opened. A woman appeared, tall and composed, wearing a thick sweater and a scarf. Her eyes widened slightly at the sight of Maria and Sophia standing in the cold, snowflakes clinging to their hair and clothes. She hesitated, as if unsure whether to welcome them or turn them away. Maria noticed the hesitation and swallowed the lump in her throat. She knew she had to speak quickly before the opportunity slipped away. "Please," Maria began, her voice trembling but firm, "I don't have anywhere else to go. My daughter, she's hungry. We have nowhere to sleep tonight. I can't protect her if I don't find help." Her words spilled out in a rush, heavy with fear and exhaustion. She paused, took a deep breath, and added, "I'll do anything. I will warm your bed, just for tonight. Just, please, give my daughter something to eat." Sophia clutched at her mother's coat and whispered softly, "Mama, are we safe?" Maria smiled gently through her tears and stroked her daughter's hair. "Yes, baby, we are safe. We are almost there." She tried to speak with calm certainty, but her voice betrayed her. She was terrified. Her hands were shaking, her knees weak from the cold. But she had forced herself to come here. This plea was more than words. It was a lifeline, and she knew that sometimes reaching out was the only chance they had. The woman at the door studied Maria carefully, her brow furrowed as she considered the situation. It was not every day that someone knocked on her door, asking so openly and vulnerably for help. Maria could see the conflict in her eyes. Fear, caution, and hesitation mixing with concern. The silence stretched, and Maria felt time slowing down, each second heavy with possibility and dread. She swallowed hard and continued, "Please."
I have nowhere else to turn. My daughter.
She hasn't eaten all day.
"I can't let her suffer like this." Sophia tugged gently at Maria's sleeve and whispered, "Mama, I'm hungry." Maria knelt down so her eyes were level with her daughter's. "I know, baby," she said softly. "I know. We're going to be okay. I promise." Then, turning back to the woman, she added, "I will leave in the morning.
I just need tonight."
Just one night, please." The woman hesitated again, biting her lip as she weighed the request. Maria's heart pounded in her chest. She had never felt so vulnerable in her life. Pride was gone, replaced by desperation, by a raw, naked love for her child that refused to let fear stop her. She thought of every cold night, every empty meal, every moment Sophia had cried quietly in her arms because she could not give her daughter what she needed. That love, that fierce, protective love, was what drove her now. Finally, the woman spoke, her voice soft but uncertain. I don't know if this is safe. I've never had anyone stay here like this." Maria nodded quickly, understanding completely. "I understand," she said gently. "I would never want to make you uncomfortable. I just need a chance to feed my child, to give her warmth, just for one night. That's all." The woman looked past Maria, glancing at Sophia. The little girl's eyes were wide, filled with trust and hope. She was holding her mother's hand tightly, and Maria could see the exhaustion and hunger in her face. Something shifted in the woman's expression. Maria could see the empathy, the humanity, breaking through the initial hesitation. She felt her own hope rise slightly, fragile but real. "Come inside," the woman finally said. Her voice was still cautious, but there was warmth in it now. Maria's chest felt as if it might burst from relief. She bent down to scoop Sophia into her arms, cradling her tightly. "Thank you," she whispered, tears spilling down her cheeks. Sophia rested her head on Maria's shoulder, tired and hungry, but safe for the first time that night. The apartment was small but cozy. The walls were painted a warm cream color, and a small fire flickered in the corner. Maria set Sophia down on a soft rug, and the little girl immediately curled up, shivering but safe. Maria knelt beside her and wrapped her arms around her once more. "You're okay, baby," she whispered. "We're okay now." The woman led Maria to the kitchen and handed her a bowl of warm soup. Maria's hand shook as she took it, overwhelmed by the kindness. She spooned some into Sophia's mouth, watching the little girl's eyes light up as the warm broth touched her lips. Sophia's tiny hands clutched the bowl, and Maria felt a swell of relief and gratitude. For a moment, everything else disappeared. The cold, the hunger, the fear. There was only warmth, only safety, only the moment of connection and care. Maria ate slowly, savoring each bite while keeping a careful eye on Sophia. She remembered the nights they had gone hungry, the days filled with worry, and she felt an almost unbearable mix of gratitude and sadness. How had it come to this, she wondered? How had a mother's life become so precarious, so fragile? And yet, in this moment, she felt a flicker of hope, the kind that could grow into something stronger if she held on to it. As they ate, the woman spoke softly.
"It's not much," she said, "but it's enough to fill her for tonight."
Maria nodded, her voice choked with emotion. "It's more than enough," she whispered. "You have no idea how much this means." She looked down at Sophia, who was now smiling faintly as she ate. The little girl's trust, her resilience, reminded Maria why she had kept going, why she had dared to knock on the door, to plead for help. After the meal, Maria cleaned up quietly, careful not to impose. She knew that kindness like this could not be taken for granted. She tucked Sophia into a small bed in the corner, covering her with blankets that smelled of warmth and safety. The little girl drifted off to sleep almost immediately, exhausted from hunger and cold, yet comforted by the presence of her mother and the kindness of a stranger. Maria sat beside the bed, watching her daughter sleep, feeling a strange mixture of relief and anxiety. She knew the night was not the end of their struggles, but it was a start. Maria turned to the woman, her hands folded nervously in front of her. I can't thank you enough," she said. "Tonight, you've given us hope. That hope, it's all we have sometimes." The woman nodded, still cautious, but a small smile touched her lips. "Sometimes, it's all anyone can do," she said softly. "And sometimes, helping someone is helping yourself too." Maria nodded, understanding the truth in those words. It was a simple gesture, but it carried so much meaning, so much humanity. That night, Maria stayed awake for a long time, watching Sophia sleep peacefully. The warmth of the blankets, the kindness of the stranger, and the simple act of sharing a meal created a bubble of safety that seemed almost unreal. She thought about how far they had come, how desperate she had been, and how love had given her the courage to ask for help. She whispered softly to herself, "We will be okay. I promise we will be okay." Outside, the city continued to move, indifferent to the struggles of a mother and child. But inside that small apartment, there was warmth, there was food, and there was hope. For the first time in weeks, Maria felt a sense of relief, a fragile but powerful hope that tomorrow might bring new opportunities, new help, and a chance to build a life where Sophia could be safe, fed, and loved. And for the first time in a long time, Maria allowed herself to breathe, to feel, to hope. Maria stood in the small, warmly lit apartment, her heart still pounding from the fear and relief that had washed over her moments ago. The woman had allowed them in, had given them a meal, and even a warm place for Sophia to sleep. But Maria knew this was only temporary. Every instinct told her that their safety here was fragile. She could not relax, could not let herself forget that once tomorrow came, they might be back on the streets. And yet, for this night, she had hope. Sophia, exhausted from hunger and the cold night, had curled up in the small bed, her tiny hands clutching the blankets. Her breathing had slowed, soft and steady, and Maria watched her, feeling a mix of joy, relief, and guilt. She kissed her daughter's forehead gently, whispering, "Sleep well, my little one. Mama is here." The child mumbled softly in her sleep, a faint smile crossing her face. Seeing her safe, even just for a night, made Maria's chest tighten with emotion. The woman whose name Maria learned was Helena moved quietly around the small apartment, clearing dishes and making small adjustments to the room. Her movements were cautious but kind, and Maria could sense that she was trying to balance her natural caution with a growing empathy. Helena had lived alone for years, she explained, and had rarely been approached in such a direct and vulnerable way. Most people, Maria imagined, might have looked past a mother and child on the street, assuming there was nothing they could do. But Maria had dared to ask, had dared to be completely honest, and that honesty had opened the door. Still, Helena's hesitation was clear. Paused in the doorway, hands on her hips, and looked at Maria. "I need to ask you something," she said carefully.
I've never done this before. I don't know what to expect. How long will you stay?
"What if something goes wrong?" Maria took a deep breath, understanding the fear in her voice. "I won't cause any trouble," she said firmly, but gently. "I only need tonight. I will leave in the morning. I am I. I just need a chance for my daughter to eat and rest. That's all. I promise." Helena's eyes softened, but the tension in her shoulders remained. Maria could see that she was genuinely trying to balance her desire to help with her caution. "It's not just tonight," Helena said slowly. "I mean, you're alone. You don't have anywhere else? I can give you a meal, a bed for the night, yes. But what about tomorrow? What happens after that?" Maria's throat tightened. She had no answer, no guarantees. Her life had been a constant struggle, a cycle of uncertainty, and she had learned to survive one moment at a time. I don't know yet," she admitted honestly, "but I'll keep trying. I promise I'll find a way. Right now, tonight, we just need this." Helena studied her, her eyes searching Maria's face for any sign of dishonesty or hidden motives. Maria's honesty, her open vulnerability, and the love she radiated for Sophia seemed to pierce through the hesitation. Helena's body relaxed slightly, though her mind still worked through every possibility. Maria noticed a small sigh escape her lips, almost imperceptible, but enough to let Maria know that the woman's heart was softening. The tension in the room shifted. Maria's hands, which had been clenched tightly, relaxed slightly. She allowed herself a small measure of hope. She knew she could not force Helena to trust her, but she also knew that pleading, explaining, and showing her vulnerability was the only way forward. She knelt down to Sophia, brushing a strand of hair from her face. "Mama will take care of you," she whispered. The child stirred slightly, murmuring something unintelligible in her sleep, and Maria's heart ached. She wished she could shield her daughter from every hardship, but for now she could only promise to protect her as best she could. Helena returned to the kitchen, pouring herself a small cup of tea. Maria watched her, noticing how carefully she moved, how her eyes constantly flicked toward the mother and child. It was clear that Helena had not made this decision lightly. Helping someone in such a direct, personal way carried risk, and yet she had chosen compassion over fear. Maria felt a wave of gratitude she could not fully express in words. She wanted to tell Helena everything, her struggles, her fears, her dreams for Sophia, but she also knew that trust had to be earned gradually. The night stretched on. Maria remained close to Sophia, sitting quietly on the edge of the small bed, watching her daughter sleep. She thought about the streets they had walked, the cold that had bitten through their coats, the hunger that had gnawed at their stomachs, and the countless nights she had feared for Sophia's safety. Each memory made her grip the edge of the bed tighter, as if holding on could somehow keep the past from returning. Yet in the warmth of Helena's apartment, there was a sense of peace Maria had not felt in weeks, a fragile, glowing hope that maybe, just maybe, things could get better. Helena returned to the living room, sitting in a chair across from Maria. She held her cup of tea in both hands, her expression thoughtful. "You've been very brave," she said softly. "It takes a lot of courage to ask for help like this. I've seen so many people ignore others or pretend they don't see. You didn't do that."
You faced your fear. Maria felt tears prick at the corners of her eyes.
"I didn't have a choice," she admitted. "I couldn't let my daughter go hungry. I had to try, even if it was scary. Even if it meant I had to be completely honest and vulnerable." Helena nodded, sipping her tea slowly. "I can see that," she said. "It's not easy. You're carrying a heavy burden." Maria glanced down at Sophia, still sleeping peacefully. "Everything I do for her," she said. "Every step, every struggle, every sleepless night. I will never let her suffer if I can help it. Even if I have nothing, I will fight for her." Helena's eyes softened further. She could see the love radiating from Maria, the strength hidden behind her exhaustion. Helping this mother and child felt less like a risk now and more like a responsibility she was willing to accept. The two women sat in silence for a few moments, each lost in their own thoughts. Maria thought about the countless nights she had walked the city streets with Sophia, searching for warmth, food, and safety. She thought about the times she had almost given up, when the weight of the world had pressed down on her so heavily that she could barely breathe. And yet, here she was, still standing, still fighting, still willing to reach out even when fear and pride tried to hold her back. Helena finally spoke again. "I'm glad you came tonight," she said softly. "I was afraid at first, but seeing your love for your daughter, I can't turn you away, not when you're this honest, this open. You deserve help." Maria felt a warmth in her chest that had nothing to do with the fire in the corner. Relief washed over her in waves, and she swallowed hard to keep her voice steady. "Thank you," she whispered. I don't know what I would have done if I hadn't come here tonight." The night continued quietly. Maria stayed close to Sophia, occasionally brushing the little girl's hair or whispering comforting words. Helena moved around the apartment, cleaning and adjusting things, always keeping an eye on the mother and child. The hesitation that had filled the room earlier slowly melted away, replaced by a fragile trust that grew with each passing hour. Maria realized that sometimes courage wasn't about pride or strength. It was about honesty, vulnerability, and the willingness to ask for help when it was needed most. Before long, Maria noticed that the tension in Helena's demeanor had softened completely. The woman's caution remained, but it was tempered by compassion, empathy, and a desire to do the right thing. Maria felt a sense of hope she hadn't felt in weeks, a belief that maybe this small act of kindness could ripple outward, changing their lives in ways she could not yet imagine. As the night drew on, Maria whispered to herself, "Tomorrow will be a new day."
A better day. We can make it through this, Sophia.
We will. She leaned back, allowing herself a moment of rest while still keeping a watchful eye on her sleeping daughter. For the first time in weeks, Maria felt that the impossible might be possible, that a single act of trust and honesty could create a pathway out of despair. Outside, the city moved on, indifferent to the struggles of a mother and child. But inside the small apartment, warmth, trust, and hope had taken root. Maria knew that the road ahead would still be difficult, that challenges awaited them, but for tonight, they were safe. They had found a small island of security in a harsh world, a place where love and honesty had overcome fear and hesitation. And in that quiet, fragile peace, Maria allowed herself to believe that maybe, just maybe, the future could be brighter than the past. The next morning, Maria woke to the faint glow of sunlight filtering through the small curtains. For a moment, she forgot where she was, caught between the lingering dreams of a harsh, cold street and the reality of the small apartment that now offered warmth and safety. She gently touched Sophia's shoulder, and the little girl stirred, blinking sleepily at the soft light. "Good morning, baby," Maria whispered. "Did you sleep well?" Sophia nodded slowly, a small smile forming on her lips. "Warm," she murmured, snuggling closer. Maria felt a wave of relief wash over her. For the first time in weeks, perhaps months, her daughter had slept through the night without fear or hunger pressing on her tiny body. The warmth of the apartment, the blankets, the soft rug beneath them, all of it felt almost unreal after so many nights on cold streets and hard floors. Maria pressed a kiss to Sophia's forehead and whispered, "Yes, my love, we're safe. Today will be better." As Sophia climbed down from the bed to play quietly with a small toy Maria had found in the corner of the room, Helena appeared in the doorway with a gentle smile. "Breakfast is ready," she said softly. Maria's stomach tightened at the thought of a warm meal, and she realized she had not eaten properly in days. She stood, smoothing her clothes and brushing her hair back, feeling a mix of nerves and gratitude. She was still wary, still cautious, but the kindness in Helena's tone was undeniable. The kitchen was small but tidy, a space that smelled faintly of fresh bread and brewed tea. Helena had prepared a simple breakfast, warm porridge with a few slices of fruit and a small cup of tea. It was humble, but to Maria and Sophia, it felt like a feast. The aroma alone made her stomach growl, and she smiled faintly, feeling tears prick her eyes. "Thank you," she said softly, sitting down at the small table. "This means more than you can imagine." Sophia climbed onto the chair beside her mother, eager for the meal. She picked up the spoon carefully, her small hands shaking slightly from excitement and hunger. Maria spooned some porridge into her daughter's mouth, watching the light return to her cheeks. Sophia's eyes sparkled with delight, and she hummed softly as she ate. Maria allowed herself to take a small bite of her own porridge, feeling the warmth spread through her body. It was not just the food, it was the safety, the comfort, and the kindness of someone who had chosen to help. Helena watched quietly from across the table, her eyes soft and reflective. She could see the relief in Maria's posture, the joy in Sophia's movements, and she felt a quiet satisfaction. "You're very strong," Helena said, her voice calm and measured. "It's not easy to survive what you've been through. And yet, here you are, still fighting for your child." Maria smiled faintly, the weight of her exhaustion still evident on her face. "I don't have a choice," she said honestly. "Everything I do for her. She is my world. I will never give up on her, no matter how hard it gets." After breakfast, Helena suggested they sit in the living area, where the small fire still flickered. Maria and Sophia sat on the rug, Maria holding her daughter close while Helena poured another cup of tea for herself. The room was quiet, save for the soft crackle of the fire and the occasional hum of distant traffic outside. Maria looked at the woman, feeling a mix of gratitude and curiosity. "I don't even know how to thank you," she said softly. "You've done more for us than I ever imagined possible." Helena shook her head, a small smile playing at her lips. "It's not about thanks," she said. "It's about doing what's right. You asked for help, and you were honest. That honesty deserves a response. In seeing you with your daughter, I couldn't turn you away. No one should have to face the world alone, not like that." Maria felt tears threaten to spill, but she blinked rapidly, trying to hold them back. She had been through so many nights of hunger, fear, and uncertainty that this simple acknowledgement of her struggle felt overwhelming. As they spoke, Maria began to feel a shift inside her. The fear that had dominated every moment of the past weeks began to fade, replaced by a cautious optimism. She realized that for the first time in a long while, they were not alone. There was someone willing to offer them shelter, food, and care, not out of obligation, but out of genuine kindness. She looked down at Sophia, who was now giggling softly at a small wooden toy Helena had offered. Her daughter's laughter was like music to Maria's ears, and she felt a warmth in her heart that she had thought lost forever. Helena spoke again, her voice gentle but firm. "I know this is temporary, but it's a start. There are resources, programs, people who can help you. You don't have to do this alone." "Not anymore." Maria nodded, feeling a spark of hope ignite in her chest. I didn't know where to turn," she admitted. "But meeting you, it feels like a new beginning. For the first time in weeks, I feel like there's a path forward." Helena's expression softened. "There is always a path forward," she said. "You just need someone to walk with you for a while." The hours passed quietly. Maria spent time playing with Sophia, teaching her small games and watching her giggle and explore the small apartment. It was a simple joy, but to Maria it felt monumental. The little routines, the laughter, the warmth, they were a glimpse of the life she wanted to give her daughter. Helena helped where she could, offering advice about resources, telling stories of the neighborhood, and gently guiding Maria toward programs that could provide long-term assistance. Each word, each suggestion felt like a lifeline, pulling them further away from the despair they had known. By midday, Maria felt a sense of calm she had not known in months. She realized that the kindness of a stranger had done more than fill their stomachs or offer warmth. It had restored her hope. The world, she understood now, was not entirely cruel. There were people who could see her struggle, who could respond with compassion rather than judgment. And while the road ahead would still be difficult, she felt prepared to face it, armed with the knowledge that she was not alone. Sophia, exhausted from the morning's excitement, curled up in her mother's lap for a nap. Maria held her close, feeling the soft rise and fall of her tiny chest, listening to the slow, steady rhythm of her breathing. She thought about the past weeks, the endless searching, the nights spent on cold streets, the constant worry, and she felt a wave of gratitude for Helena's courage to trust her plea. One small act of kindness had created a ripple, giving them a chance at stability and safety. As the day turned to evening, Maria and Helena spoke quietly about next steps. Helena suggested connecting Maria with local food programs, shelters, and childcare resources. She offered to accompany Maria on visits to ensure they could access support safely. Maria's heart swelled with gratitude. For the first time, she felt she could envision a future where Sophia would not have to endure hunger or fear. She could imagine small victories, warm meals, safe shelter, laughter in the evenings. things she had only dreamed of during the harshest nights. That night, as Maria tucked Sophia into the small bed once again, she whispered softly, "Tomorrow we start anew. We will find our way." Sophia snuggled closer, murmuring, "Safe, warm." Maria smiled through her tears. Yes, they were safe. Yes, they were warm. And for the first time in what felt like forever, Maria believed that hope was not just a dream, but a reality they could hold in their hands. Outside, the city lights flickered, indifferent to the small victories within the apartment. But inside, warmth, safety, and kindness had created a sanctuary. Maria realized that courage, honesty, and love could overcome fear and hesitation. Helena's decision to help had changed their lives in ways that would echo far beyond a single night. And Maria knew that while challenges would come, tonight had proven that help could arrive when it was needed most. And in that quiet, glowing apartment, mother and daughter slept peacefully, wrapped in warmth, security, and a fragile but growing hope that the future could indeed be brighter than the past. The morning light crept gently into the small apartment, painting the walls in soft gold. Maria stirred, waking slowly to the warmth that had been absent from her life for so long. She turned to look at Sophia, who was still curled under the blankets, eyes blinking sleepily in the sunlight. For a moment, Maria allowed herself to simply watch her daughter, feeling a wave of gratitude and relief. The little girl was safe, warm, and fed. It seemed almost miraculous after so many nights on cold streets, huddled in alleys, or struggling in crowded shelters. Maria rose quietly, careful not to wake Sophia, and looked around the small apartment. The room felt alive with hope, a sharp contrast to the emptiness and fear she had lived with for weeks. Helena was already awake, tidying up the kitchen and humming softly to herself. Maria's heart swelled with gratitude. She remembered the first moment she had knocked on this door, trembling, desperate, and unsure if anyone would respond. And now here they were, alive, warm, and beginning to dream of a better future. After breakfast, Helena suggested that Maria and Sophia take a short walk outside just to breathe fresh air and get a little sunlight. Maria wrapped Sophia in a thick coat and held her hand tightly as they stepped into the crisp morning air. The streets were bustling with life, but Maria's mind was focused entirely on the little world she had created here, in this apartment, with Helena's help. She realized that each small step, each small act of kindness, could change everything. As they walked, Elena spoke gently to Maria. "There are resources," she said. "Programs that can help you find steady work, childcare, and safe housing. You don't have to do this alone. You've survived on your own, yes, but sometimes we all need someone to walk beside us." Maria nodded, listening carefully. The words stirred something deep inside her, a hope she had not felt in a long time. She had survived through courage and determination, but now she understood that accepting help was also a kind of strength. That afternoon, Helena took Maria to a local community center. It was a small, busy place, but welcoming. There were people offering food, clothing, and information about housing programs. Maria felt a little nervous at first, unsure if she belonged here. But Helena stayed close, offering reassurance and support. Maria remembered how isolated she had felt during the past weeks, how invisible the world had seemed. Now, for the first time, she felt seen, not judged, not pitied, but genuinely acknowledged. The community workers were kind and patient, listening to Maria's story and explaining the programs available to her. There were food programs that could provide regular meals for Sophia, daycare options, and even temporary housing while Maria sought work. Each explanation felt like a small lifeline, a pathway out of the constant uncertainty that had dominated their lives. Maria's heart lifted with every word, and she began to imagine a life where she could provide stability and comfort for her daughter. Sophia explored the community center, her laughter ringing out as she played with other children. Maria watched, her heart swelling. The little girl's joy was infectious, a reminder of what was at stake and what was possible. Maria realized that her fight was not just for survival, but for the chance for Sophia to experience a childhood filled with safety, laughter, and hope. The thought made her stronger, more determined than ever to build a future where her daughter would never have to go hungry or fear the cold again. When they returned to the apartment in the evening, Maria felt a sense of calm and accomplishment. They had taken their first steps toward stability, guided by Helena's compassion. The small apartment, once a temporary refuge, now felt like a place of possibility. Maria sat with Sophia on the rug, brushing her daughter's hair and talking softly about the day. "We met so many kind people today," she said. "And we are going to keep going. Things will get better, I promise." Sophia smiled, her trust unwavering, and Maria felt a renewed sense of purpose. Over the next few weeks, Maria continued to work with Helena and the community center. She began to receive small but steady support: food for their meals, clothing to replace worn items, and information about job opportunities. Each small victory felt monumental, a step away from the constant fear and toward a life filled with hope. Maria was careful to take things one day at a time, knowing that rebuilding their lives would not happen overnight. But with each passing day, she felt more capable, more resilient, and more hopeful. Sophia thrived in this new environment. She laughed, played, and learned with other children at the community center. Maria watched her grow, amazed at her resilience and spirit. Every smile, every small accomplishment reinforced Maria's determination to create a life filled with security, warmth, and love. She began to see a future she had never dared to imagine, one where fear and hunger were not constant companions. Elena continued to offer guidance and support, becoming a trusted friend and mentor. She helped Maria navigate the various programs, introduced her to others in the community who could assist, and shared practical advice for maintaining stability. Maria's gratitude toward her was immense, but she also realized that Helena's kindness had sparked something more profound: a sense of trust, hope, and the knowledge that compassion could truly change lives. She found part-time work that allowed her to support Sophia while also attending to her own needs. She secured a small, safe apartment where they could finally unpack their few belongings and create a home of their own. The memory of the cold streets, empty stomachs, and endless uncertainty began to fade, replaced by routines, warmth, and security. Maria often reflected on the night she had knocked on Helena's door, realizing how that single act of courage and honesty had set their lives on a new path. Sophia grew stronger and happier with each passing day. Her laughter filled the apartment, a constant reminder of the resilience and joy that could flourish when fear and hunger were replaced by safety and love. Maria watched her daughter play, learn, and explore the world, feeling a profound sense of fulfillment. Every small victory, from a warm meal to a safe bedtime, was a testament to their perseverance and the kindness of those who had helped them along the way. Maria also began to give back to the community that had supported her. She volunteered at the community center, helping other parents navigate the programs and resources available. She shared her story, not for recognition, but to inspire hope and demonstrate the power of courage, honesty, and compassion. Her experiences had taught her that even in the darkest times, a single act of kindness could create a ripple effect, changing lives in ways that could not always be predicted. Helena remained a close friend and mentor, their bond strengthened by the shared experiences of that first night. They often spoke of the journey they had undertaken together, of the struggles, fears, and small victories that had defined the early days. Maria knew that without Helena's compassion and willingness to listen, they might still be facing the harsh streets, and so gratitude and a commitment to pay it forward became guiding principles in Maria's life. As the years went by, Maria and Sophia continued to build a life filled with stability, warmth, and love. The struggles of the past never fully disappeared from Maria's memory, but they became a source of strength rather than despair. She taught Sophia to value compassion, resilience, and honesty, showing her that even in difficult times, there was always a way forward. The bond between mother and daughter grew stronger, built on shared experience, trust, and unwavering love. Maria often reflected on that cold night when desperation had driven her to ask for help in the most vulnerable way possible. She realized that courage, love, and honesty had opened doors she never could have imagined. One night of kindness had changed the trajectory of their lives, transforming fear into hope, hunger into nourishment, and uncertainty into possibility. She carried that lesson with her always, sharing it with others, and living by the principle that helping someone in need could create ripples far beyond a single moment. In the end, Maria's story became one of hope, resilience, and the transformative power of compassion.